Well, I think your first
Hmm.
question was, why are we doing this?
Yes, it was my first, second, and third question.
It's funny because, you know, first of all, we got a lot more on the time on our hands, thanks to the COVID, right? And
Okay, well,
and out of nowhere, I get a guy messaging me who I used to interview on BNN all the time, who had wanted to do a project with me forever, and kept pushing it back, kept pushing it back, and then when he said, "Listen, we should do something together with this whole COVID thing," I thought, "Well, yeah, let's." And so I got all of the gear ready to go, and just as we were about to launch it, he goes, "Oh, by the way, I also when I emailed you suggesting we do something, I also emailed Yahoo Finance. So I got a meeting with them at 2 o'clock. I'll let you know how it goes." He emails me an hour after the meeting. Yeah, they're really interested in the big idea that you spent all this time, Michael, putting together, but they don't want to do it with you. They only want to do it with me.
oh, oh dear. Okay, so that still doesn't explain why we're doing what we're doing right now.
Well, in other words, I had put all the effort into figuring out how we
Oh,
could
I
do
see.
these
Oh,
live streams on a regular basis, so we might as well
right.
do it. People have been asking for us to do these sorts of things.
Many people. You sound like Donald Trump.
Many people are saying exactly.
Many people are saying,
Yeah.
yes, sir. Yes. People come up to me and say, sir, many people have said.
So, yeah, how are you holding up with the whole Corona apocalypse?
So far, I'm okay. I have anecdotally, I have heard of a number of people who got very sick with a cold or a flu back in October and November. That includes my wife. And it was the worst flu that she had ever had. And then I came down with a version of it thereafter. Anecdotally, I'm hearing a lot of people saying exactly the same thing. So I'm wondering if this coronavirus had not been in circulation a lot longer than we have been told. It's hard to believe that it went from a 55-year-old man in Wuhan working in a wet market in mid-November to what we're seeing today. So I would not be horribly surprised if this hasn't been in circulation since September, October of last year. Just again, based on nothing but anecdotal evidence. So that doesn't really answer your question. We're fine. I'm walking the dog a lot, lots of social isolation. Only one of us leaves the house at a time, and we've got lots of toilet paper.
I saw a guy who had done the math on those giant, crates of toilet paper and how many times you'd have to use the facilities for it to be a viable thing. And the answer was you'd have to go poo 147 times per day for this to make
Right.
sense.
If you need 144,000 sheets of toilet paper to last you through a 14-day quarantine, then you should have seen a doctor long before this broke out.
Okay, so um, we because this is kind of like how the sausages are made. We usually record the guest interview segment first, and then you and I do the other stuff that ends up being at the beginning of the program. So, what do you say we just sort of get into that and take it from there? Sound
Yes,
good?
let's do that.
Okay, all right. So, I wanted to pull this up, get a sense of this. So, we're talking about the coronavirus panic index. Have you seen this?
I did. As a matter of fact, if you remember, I'm the one that forwarded it to you.
Oh,
Of course, I
that's
saw it.
right. We have been flooded with corona-related material over the last week or so that I am just losing track of where all of this is coming from. So why did you wanna
It is
talk to this
hard.
guy?
Well, again, this idea that there seems to be different levels of panic in different parts of the world. It's understandable what's going on in places like China and Italy and Spain, and to a certain extent, the United States. But it's also interesting to see what's going on in places like South Korea and Singapore, where they seem to have things under control. Even India doesn't have a big panic index right now. So I'd like to know how this is actually calculated and how it's graphed.
Mhm. Alright, so let's look at it now. This is the coronavirus panic index for the world, and the world panic score is presently set at 66. And we can see Greenland doesn't seem to be too concerned. The Americans seem to be more concerned than us. And that's really not much of a surprise, I suppose.
No, they are way behind on the preparedness and on action. So, and they don't have universal health care, which is an issue simply because there are a lot of people that are going to be walking around with the virus who don't want to get tested or can't afford to take work off. So, they're not spending the $3,200 or whatever it is for a coronavirus test. So it's a much different situation than it is
3,200.
here. Yeah. I read it in the New York Times. A guy decided that he was an hourly worker, and he went. This was in New York and New Jersey. Decided that he'd better get tested. He went, and then he was presented with a bill for $3,200.
Wow. Yeah, there was that video making the rounds of a reporter asking British people how much they thought a variety of standard things like diabetic medication, asthma medication cost in the United States. My little Ventolin inhaler, my little puffer that
Mm.
Hollywood uses to denote the nerd character, was
Yep.
$500 per
Where?
unit,
What?
according to this guy, in the United States.
Where? In the U.S.? How much are you
Yeah,
paying
a
for it?
Ventolin uh, I have no idea. I'm probably paying $10 as the copay on it every
Oh
time
my!
I get a new one.
Wow.
But if it was $500, that would be remarkable.
Well, yeah, insulin spiked in the U.S. too. I can't remember insulin, and what was it? EpiPens have gone through
EpiPens.
the roof when it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look back at this panic COVID index. So again, 66 is the world panic score. The Americans are a little more. They've got the panic score of 75 right now. And the Cognovi Emotion AI says that among the emotional words, school, no surprise there. And of course, school enclosed. I've got the little one who got the extended March break. The kids were supposed to go back to school on Monday, but it's now 2 additional weeks beyond that. I don't see them going back to school at all this year.
I don't know. I hope not. I hope that's not the case because I mean that's. I feel bad for kids in grade 12. I mean, they won't have a proper end to their high school year or their high school career.
Yeah.
And
Well,
same thing with people in universities. I know a lot of people that have gone and picked up their kids from the dorms because the universities have closed down. They're coming home. They don't know whether or not they're going to have exams. They don't know if they're going to have their graduation. It's pretty weird.
okay. So let's get a sense as to how this Corona Panic Index works in the first place. So joining us now with a better understanding as to how it works is the man behind it. He's the chief executive officer of Cognovi Labs, and he joins us now from his office in New York. Thank you very much, Dr. Ben Gradwohl, joining us now. Thank you.
Hey, Michael.
Can
Hey,
you hear us?
Alan. Yes, I
How do
can. Can
you
you hear me?
how, how do you distill everything down to a score? I'm fascinated by maps, and I just want to know how you do this.
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting. So what we do is Cognovi Labs is a predictive analytics company at that intersection between machine learning and behavioral psychology. And what we do is we extract the underlying emotions from online conversations and then
Oh,
translate those key emotions into behavioral signals. And that gives you a small set of scores. And one of them is what we call the panic score.
So
all
this
right.
is
And
based
where do you
upon
find?
a
Oh,
machine
go ahead.
learning system that allows you to extract from social media these individual words, but you must have to put individual weight on individual words because not all words are equal.
That's absolutely right. And so what you're referring to, Michael, is what's called in our industry a lexical approach, where you say, okay, certain words are associated with certain emotions, whether it's joy or anger or fear in this case, or disgust. Um, we do it a little bit different. We do it differently because when you talk in social media or you talk in blogs or in discussion forums, there's a lot of slang and curses and emojis. And so context is important. And if context is important, you really have to train a machine. So what's called machine learning. And so we have a supervised machine learning where we train a system essentially to read and understand emotions the same way human beings would. So you read something and say, this person was happy. This person was fearful. this person didn't show emotions. And so we train our system to do that in context, and that gives us a better weight of what kind of emotions are there.
I remember many years ago, Google used search analytics to determine flu outbreaks across the United States. So this is taking it to another level, is it not?
It's a completely different approach. So what Google did, which is also fascinating, is to look at the amount of search terms coming up when people talk about, oh, I have a headache, I have a flu, I have a head cold, and according to that, create a map based on the searches in searches. So that gave you that flu map. If you look at social media, you look at online conversations, you could do something similar. You could look at the amount of chatter there is around the coronavirus, in certain areas. But what it really gives you is only the level of chatter. Now, the level of chatter or the level, the volume of conversation doesn't really tell you much about the emotionality, the panic, the fear, the social impact. It just talks about, yeah, people talk about it. Now, here's what's so interesting with us as human beings. 70 to 90% of decisions we make day in, day out are made by a subconscious mind based on emotions. And that's in general. So when we go out and buy sneakers, or we travel on an airline, or we vote in an election, it's by and large based on emotions. It's always there. There are, we have a couple of Nobel Prize laureates who got the Nobel Prize in behavioral economics, behavioral finance based on that. What's unique in a crisis is that now everyone knows about it. Everyone understands this parallel paths of those parallel worlds of, on one hand, having the facts, like how many people get infected, how severe is it, versus the perception, the emotionality. And so talking about it isn't enough. You really have to understand what part of that conversation is emotional and actually changes behavior or provides trust and has an emotional impact versus the ones which is just chatter.
Okay, so we've got chatter happening. What do we do with this information? Now that we know that there are certain places more anxious than others, what sort of useful information can we distill from that?
Yes, and that's incredibly important. And I don't know, I live in New York, so our Governor Cuomo, gave a press conference yesterday, and about 25 minutes in, he said, look, the impact of the coronavirus pandemic will be multifold. One of them obviously will be economics, on the economic activities and GDP in general. Will have a lot of personal impact, but also it will have an impact on our mental health in general of the population. And unfortunately, and that's his words, we don't have a Dow Jones social index to measure that. So the answer is, the first part, if you want to change something, is to measure it. We have that. We call it the panic index. You can call it the emotionality or the social index, but it does the same. It measures the emotionality and people's fears by topic, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's employment around coronavirus. Maybe it's around staying at home or homeschooling related to coronavirus. And what's important is not just to see how the fear spiked over the last several weeks, but also see when it turns down and the healing starts. So that's the first part, what you do with it.
So before we move
The
into
second,
the next parts, which I think are particularly tied to predicting pandemics and using machine learning to make that possible, where is the artificial intelligence in this? Because everything I understand about AI tells us that we really don't have true AI yet, but we do have algorithms and machine learning. So where are we in that advance in the technology?
yeah, I mean, all the AI comes in different levels. There's the weak, there's the very strong. We are still at the very weak level, which means that we're trying to have systems replicate how human beings behave and make decisions. It cannot do it on its own. It can't be creative. It can't do more than that. So all that thoughts about cyborgs and the strong AI is many, many years down the road. AI today is really having machine learning capabilities to find either hidden patterns, which you otherwise wouldn't see. And that's usually done in an area which is called unsupervised machine learning, where you let the system figure out if there are certain patterns, or you train a system to replicate what we as human beings do, just faster, in many cases, much better. That's called through supervised machine learning. So you train a system. In our case, we train the system to not just understand how people talk, the free-flowing conversations, a lot of slang and curses and emojis, but also the emotionality, which is much more hidden than actual words are.
So then at the end of the day, you're not so much predicting pandemics as you're predicting the emotional reaction to it.
Yes, although in many cases, because we measure the emotions and human behavior, because people make decisions based on emotions, we often see that the emotionality changes before the actions actually happened. So in the case of pandemic, we heard out of China back in December 2019 that there are some cases and the coronavirus comes up. But in the United States, if you look at the media, there was really less conversations, especially on social media. People were not concerned yet. We, however, received our first indication that there is an issue on January the 23rd. So many, many weeks before it really started overflowing and the market collapsed, we already saw that from an emotional point of view, the conversation changed. It didn't yet spike up, but emotionally there was a structural change, and we started seeing some panic come in. And we will see that in the healing process as well, that we probably will see a change in the human emotions and the social and the panic index before things actually become very clear. So from that point of view,
That's
it is predicted. Yes.
By the way, that's not me having breathing problems. That's the dog that walked in here and she's snorting. So I'm fine.
It's not you with COVID-19. It's the dog with
It's not
regular
me
sinus.
with no. I have no lesions on my lungs. This is the dog snorting.
All right, question to you, sir.
Oh, me?
Yep.
Wait, I'm asking a question? Good thing we're editing this.
It's your turn. Yeah,
Okay, okay, my turn. Okay, can you, based on the data that you have, can you extrapolate panic? Or is this too, or are we too early into the crisis?
What do you mean on the extrapolate? Meaning understanding what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, can we predict anything from the panic? Sorry, can we predict anything from your panic index?
Absolutely. And let me give you one prediction we made just a week ago. You may remember that Sunday, a week ago, the Fed came out with a rate cut on Sunday and the stimulus program. We looked at our technology and we saw that people were really talking about it, but emotionally they did not engage with that. And therefore it didn't really sink in. So we knew Sunday night that the capital markets will open up on the downside and have a very bad day, because if you think about the rate cut or Federal Reserve's action, it has two objectives. One of them is to bring back the liquidity into the market, which has a medium long-term effect. And second, very importantly, to restore the trust. And we saw Sunday night, it didn't restore the trust. You can see that if you want to read about it, you can go to our website. We have a blog on cognovilabs.com, and you can read about it.
So what you're saying is that when the U.S. president steps up to the microphone and does or does not reassure the American people, you could actually say for certain that the American people are or are not reassured.
Absolutely. And we can say that by topic. We can say, look, they seem to be reassured about this policy or this change, but not about the other one. And so just looking at the amount of chatter will not tell you that. But if you look at the amount of emotionality and our specific emotional impact or panic score, you will see that.
Well, it's funny you should mention this. Well, maybe not so funny. But Sunday night, 6:30 Eastern Time, watching NBC News, Trump is doing his daily update on the coronavirus situation, and my wife is on the iPad in the other room. And as soon as Trump starts speaking, she sees Dow futures drop based on the fact that this was all time for when the markets open in Asia. So it's interesting. He says it there, and it goes to hell over there.
Absolutely. I mean, markets are connected, and the U.S. equity markets weren't open for another whatever it is, 15 hours, where the Asian market was. And when we look at our technology, we saw the spike starting to happen between 5 and 6 p.m. when people started talking, and immediately we saw a strong reduction in our emotionality score. So clearly, it didn't do the job.
Okay,
All right, so
can
I'm
you
looking
explain
here.
to me? No, wait. I got one more question. It's a really important one. Can you explain to me the fear around toilet paper?
Yes, and we actually have a blog on that as well, which we wrote about last week. Fear about toilet paper is an issue of control. If you think about it from a psychological point of view, the unknown creates an enormous amount of fear and anxiety. And the more you can provide facts and insight, the more people start feeling that their life is back in control. In the absence of that, you try to get something which you feel you have control about. And so you have this crisis, panic, um, purchasing and shopping, which doesn't make any sense. But it is a reflection of the fact that, you know what, I need something in my life I can anchor around and I get control back.
So I'm looking at your
Well,
emotion allocation for crisis shopping, and on the 14th, it looks like the fear component shot through the roof. But at this point, the anger component has since subsided. To what do you attribute that?
Yeah, that's your anger and fear have a little bit different implications. Anger is something which allows us to be active, correct? Anger is actually a good emotion to motivate you to do something. Fear, to some extent, paralyzes you, correct? If you stand in front of a grizzly bear, you are incredibly stimulated with fear, but you're probably not going to move. If you're angry, then you go on the barricade, you do something. If you're too much joyful, then you're probably not going to do anything. And so it's interesting that the human psychology and the complexity, how they play themselves out, how it plays itself out in real time and how we measure that. And so what we can do is we can go beyond just the toilet paper. We can actually figure out what topics and what words generated certain emotions. And that's very important because you guys asked me, what do you do with our technology? So I told you the first thing you can do is provide insights. And that's what Governor Cuomo asked for. Can we measure the mental health of the population by geography and see how it trends to make sure we have a better insight into the emotional response of the population towards coronavirus? But the second part, which is incredibly important, is because we can tell you what conversations are emotional and emotionally engaging, we can help the policymakers, the media, anyone who has a microphone to restore trust by making sure they use the kind of words and topics which do generate the right emotions. And that's incredibly important. We
oh
use that for
yeah. So okay. So if you can help the politicians craft their message based on words that you know will affect the whole panic situation. Interesting.
absolutely. And we do that for corporations to help them, we call it through emotions triggered marketing, improve their sales. But there's nothing which stands in the way of not helping, the media or political figures to structure the conversation so it actually emotionally engages with the population in a way that it restores the trust.
Doctor, fascinating stuff.
Clever.
Thank you so much for your time and your insight here today.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Dr. Beni Gradwohl is the CEO of Cognovi Labs. He joined us from New York. Awesome. That was great. Thank you so much. So you
Just
can
amazingly good.
Yeah. So what we'll do is you can just exit the web browser window and you'll be good to go. And we'll make sure that we send you a link when we're up and running.
Fantastic. And I apologize. I don't know if I think it might have been actually a Wi-Fi issue on my end that you guys came in and out at the beginning. And so I was trying to set myself up on the main system, but by the time it was too late. So I hope it worked.
No worries. It was excellent. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks. Hey, would you get out of there? Get out, out. Go. Be gone.
What are you doing?
Oh, see,
which one is that?
This is Schmooze. And she's unplugging stuff underneath my console here. Come here. Shut up. Quit that snorting. Okay. Go ahead. Keep talking. I'm fixing. Everything will work fine. There.
We'll let you.
Everything's under control. Go. Get out. Go. There.
See, now the people get to see the nonsense I have to put up with as we get this show ready.
Well, yeah, and this is all the stuff that gets edited out. Yeah.
By me.
The snorting dogs, the stuff that doesn't work, yeah.
There is a bit of a delay here, isn't there, between us?
It is a bit awkward.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it.
Problem.
Well,
yeah, it's funny because if you use something like Zoom. Oh, okay. Well, if you use something like Zoom is doing really well. I noticed that a lot of TV networks are using that for talking to all their correspondents.
The only problem with Zoom is that it records everything as a single file, so I can't isolate us so that when we do step over each other, we can fix it. You want to talk about Pornhub?
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about Pornhub. We can also talk about a couple of things, including, hang on, I have this breaking news about sex bots.
Okay, send me the link to the sex bot thing.
All right, here we go.
Oh, and Sean, our director, says that as soon as we lost the third guest, he's got control over I was actually having to do some of the switching back and forth there with the cameras because the remote system got bogged down with that third guest.
Of course it did.
And we've
so
we
here's
75% view down to 63. So you can send me the link or what?
Okay, sex bots coming up.
Okay. In the meantime, we'll start with Pornhub, and from there we'll segue into the sex bots. Work for you?
Okay, go.
So I don't know if you know this, not being Italian, but when they closed down Italy, Pornhub made its service completely free to anyone who was in Italy. I thought it was free
I
to
didn't
begin
know
with,
that.
but apparently there's more than just Pornhub. There's Pornhub Premium. So apparently,
yes.
And I keep saying apparently, and the more I say apparently, the more suspicious it sounds.
Yes, there is the premium that you have to pay for. Although why you would do that, I don't know.
All right. So you want to go through the coronavirus insights?
You have that, right?
I got it right here. 120 million people use Pornhub every single day, they say. And they describe it as a daily routine. It's like, time to go on the Pornhub or something.
I guess so.
Right. But, so
I'm sorry.
Oh, geez, you going to make it? Hang on.
I'll be fine.
You need a breath?
I'm good. I'm good. I just, I washed it down with, yeah, I know. I washed everything down. I'm fine.
All right. So with more people self-isolating, working from home, and stocking up on household essentials, they decided to dig into the details. Here's your worldwide traffic changes compared to a regular day. There. So as of the most recent telling, the world's most popular, or one of the world's most popular adult websites, somebody corrected me and said that it is not it is one of the, and 11.6% increase over an average day. And you can really get a sense as to when people started to get concerned about it. It was the 12th of March. So we saw on the 12th of March a 7% increase, thanks to the Italians largely, that they had made this available. And then when you look at Italy specifically, here's your spike.
Zoom.
57% increase over an
Well, listen,
average day.
Listen, you're trapped at home. You can't go out. At least you've got an internet connection.
Well, exactly. If the internet goes down, you're out of luck. And even today, by and large, it's still 32.6% above normal, above average. And then apparently they offered the same service in Spain and France on the 16th. But as you can see here, with a 32% increase, it didn't really do a hell of a lot.
Oh, by the way, the most popular pornography website is something called Live Jasmine. I've never heard of Live Jasmine.
I was just about to punch it into the machine, but probably not a good idea.
Incognito mode. That's why we have incognito mode.
When I had stumbled across the Pornhub Insights page on coronavirus, I had fired off an email to our ace producer, Vanessa Azzoli, saying, "Hey, remember when we had the Pornhub people on? Do you think you can get them back to talk about this?" And I included the link. She replies back with, "I just got a visit from IT." I had accidentally sent to her home, to her work email address, not to her Geeks email address. And their system immediately caught it, and someone literally, she said, got up and walked over and talked to her about it.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
Here, by the way, this is the percentage change in traffic compared to an average day in France since they made the service free for those who want to spend, who don't want to spend the money. In Spain, 61.3% above normal.
Oh, okay. Well, again,
the Americans still pretty high too.
Yeah, well.
But get this.
Now, here's Canada.
Canadians are consuming more than the Americans are. We're 7.2% above normal, and we're only starting the social distancing. The little one and I went up for a walk just to get out of the house, and we found ourselves on the Danforth, and it wasn't at all busy, which was great to see. But people weren't really giving each other a wide berth, and I think it's about time we shut the whole damn country down.
Oh, that they're doing it around here. I'm walking the dog down the street, and I come across somebody coming the other way. There's a 10-foot circle that we walk around each other.
That's what I would think we would all be doing, but apparently we weren't.
I'm looking at Live Jasmine here. Oh, it seems to be mostly cam. Well, incognito mode. Nobody will know. Well, it's not in my search history.
Okay.
It looks mostly
I bet they're doing just as good a business as they would have been without the coronavirus, considering they are already working from home, or working from the library,
they're all
depending on the girl.
They're all cam girls, from what I gather.
I'm not putting it up on the screen.
No, don't. I'm doing it for you. I had no idea. Okay.
Have you met Nick Heath? This is the rugby commentator who, of course, because in the UK they shut down all live sporting matches, doesn't have anywhere to go for his day job. So instead, he's decided he's going to start commentating on the real world, like the International 4x4 Pushchair Formation Final live. You seen this?
What else? Listen, again, I feel extraordinarily bad for anybody in the sports business because there is no sports. What are you going to talk about? I mean, if you're TSN, Sportsnet, and all the rest of them, what are you going to talk? Thank God we have the Tom Brady situation, because otherwise there would be nothing to write about. The only other thing that people can talk about is whether or not the Olympics are going to be canceled.
Right. And I can't imagine the Olympics are going ahead. Now, I'm not an immunologist, and I don't play one on TV, but I'll tell you right now, I don't think any of us are getting back to normal until at least September.
Oh, I totally agree. September, October, for sure. And then we run the risk of having this virus rebound like it did in 1919, 1920, where we see a little bit of it hit in the spring, disappear a little bit over the summer, and then come back with a vengeance in the fall. Now, the difference is that we don't have World War I which helped communicate a lot of this disease back then. We got a better handle on the medical end of things, and we're being pretty proactive when it comes to uh, heroic measures right now. So maybe it won't be as bad as that.
You sent this link to me from the National Interest that asks the question, there are two strains of COVID 2019, but is one actually deadlier than the other? And I got to tell
Yeah.
you, I
Now,
had never heard of the national interest. So I looked it up on one of those fact checking websites, and it's considered a right of center news service, but not within the realm of Breitbart or Fox News, that it actually does have a certain amount of respect. So I thought I'd give it the time of day, but I really have a problem with headlines that are questions. Have you ever heard of Bettinger's
yeah,
law?
which is
Bettinger's law states that any headline that has a question, the answer is generally no.
hmm. I have been doing some research on this idea that there are two strains of this. And this goes
Okay.
back to the anecdotal stuff that I was talking about earlier, where we have the type S, which is very, very contagious, but only results in a bad cold or a bad flu type thing. Then you have type L, which is extremely virulent, but you have to be in very close contact with people who have that particular strain. And it is very, very bad for people who have pre existing conditions. If you read this article, which, by the way, is sourced from other sources, it does seem it seems that S evolved out of L, because the only thing in movies, viruses always mutate for the worse. In real life, they don't, because a virus needs to survive, and it will not
Right.
survive if it keeps on killing its hosts. So viruses tend to dumb themselves down going forward. So L seems to have been the strain that came out first. It has evolved into S, which is what everybody has because it's so, like I say, communicable. And there might be another strain that comes after this that's even less virulent than S, but we'll see.
One thing about COVID-19 that is understood is that this is not a virus that's based on DNA. It's a virus based on RNA, ribonucleic acid. That is what encodes the genetic information about the virus. When they're done by way of DNA, they don't mutate very frequently, but if it's an RNA-based virus, they have a tendency to do that. And so that is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why this becomes that much more of a problem is the more we get it, the more it will mutate. The more it mutates, the less likely we are to be able to come up with some sort of vaccine for it. Other than, of
Yeah.
course,
The
Donald
common
Trump,
cold.
who reportedly, according to the Germans, tried to spend $1 billion buying the a vaccine that they had been working on and wanted to lock down exclusive rights for this vaccine. Can you believe that? If this proves to be true,
Yes.
Donald Trump wanted a vaccine that only Americans would get.
Yes. So he could be a hero and be reelected in November. I totally believe it. This is his Chernobyl, in the sense that
Mm,
if you saw the series on HBO, you'll know that the first thing the government did is deny that there was ever a problem. Deny, deny,
right.
deny, 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 and then it got to a point where, well, we got it under control, and then after, well, we got it under control, but it's a little bit worse than we thought it was, and then finally, it's like, oh my God, we've really screwed up, and we're all going to die. So that's what we're kind of seeing with the federal government in the United States. We've got it locked down. It's airtight, not a problem. Numbers going to go down, uh, and then after a while, it's obviously a much bigger problem than they wanted to admit.
I'm actually kind of pleased that the world is largely shutting down on Monday, the 23rd, the day after we record this conversation, for one very specific geek reason.
Why is that?
Do you know what the video game Half-Life is?
I've yeah.
So, Half-Life is
Why?
a video game about a dystopian future in which aliens come down, and instead of being helpful, they enslave humanity and get parts of humanity to help enslave the rest of humanity, and there are these little crab-like creatures that jump up onto your face and take over you and turn you into a zombie. And this game came out 20 years ago, but here it is coming up in VR only, being released on Monday. And I remember when I played Half-Life on my machines back 20 years ago, that this was incredibly scary stuff. Here's the big tower of that the aliens are building. Valve is the company that made it, and you become so immersed in it. At least I did when it was two-dimensional 20 years ago when they came out with basically the last version of it. But now they've come up with a sequel 20 years later that is only playable in VR. So I'm not going to be experiencing this creepy alien like takeover of humanity in two dimensions. I'm literally going to be inside of it.
Well, you go right ahead. Please enjoy. I will be binge watching Succession.
I'm sort of at my limit right now on The World Is Coming to an End on TV. So I'm wondering how this is going to play out for me because it's incredibly spooky, and I'm not really one for um, science fiction horror as a genre. But look at this. This is
Okay, well, listen.
creepy AF.
Okay, now I'm going to give you something else to worry about so you can get out of your video game and back into the world of panic. A very large chunk of Yellowstone is about the size of Chicago is pulsing because of magma in the below
Because
Yellowstone
of what?
Park. Um, Magma. It is a super volcano waiting to
Magma.
happen. Yeah. So it stopped pulsing for the time being, but the whole area was going up and down and up and down, and it's just a matter of time before it blows and we all die.
I saw a
You're
blast
welcome.
radius thing, and it was described as, "Wow, the trailer for April 2020 looks off the hook."
It does. Please enjoy.
All right, stand by for the headlines.
How are you going to get
Do you know where the
text?
chat feature is? No, in the Chrome app
Let's
that we're
see.
using now. There's a little chevron
Uh,
in the top right corner next to the leave button, and you
oh
tap
yeah,
that,
there
and
it
it opens
is.
up a chat. Okay, so I'm going to
I
do the
see it.
headlines. Stand
Okay.
by.
Oh, I know what I'll do with that.
Oh, somebody just closed his window. We just lost Alan. He'll come back. I haven't finished the headlines anyway. Oh, did he come back? No, not yet. Okay. What is it? Let me introduce you to Beni.
Do, 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 do. Okay.
Alan's back with
Oh,
his
I see
other
what you do.
channel. And his
I'm here. I'm here.
up is excellent. Okay, hang on. Let me guess. You accidentally closed the wrong window.
I closed all the windows.
Okay. Now we should have you back. Okay. Sorry.
There we go.
Labs.
done?
All right. Very robust chat system they've got in this streaming system, but ready whenever you
Not
are.
really.
Oh, hang
Okay, here
on.
we go.
Maybe I'm not ready. Wait. Oh,
Corona.
okay, go.
Oh,
Sorry.
Corona Apocalypse 2020. Again?
Yeah, back off the mic a little
Corona
bit.
Apocalypse. Oh.
Yep.
Corona Apocalypse 2020. And artificial intelligence is keeping an eye on it.
We'll introduce you to Dr. Beni Gradwohl of Cognovi Labs.
While you're stuck at home like everybody else, broadcasters accustomed to reporting live have nothing to do. But one enterprising rugby commentator has a solution.
Plus, why I am more than happy to be home from work this week thanks to Half-Life and virtual reality.
Knock yourself out,
Oh,
dude. Knock yourself out.
it's going to be so exciting. All right, man. So hopefully we got all this
All
on
right.
tape.
Okay.
Hang on.
We'll talk to you later.
Before you go, hang on. Before you go, let's see if anybody's actually
Mhm.
commented on anything. And Twitter. We got a couple of likes, a couple of retweets, a couple of new follows, but it doesn't look like anybody on that
Nice.
account
Okay.
has said anything. What about over here? Notifications on that. Amber Healy says, it's great to see you guys. Be well. And then looking at your account, 20 plus notifications.
Oh, well, that's something.
Nope, absolutely nothing then. All right, so I guess
All
nobody
right, well, that's fine.
watched. Okay, man.
All right, well,
Take care.
maybe we'll see you later.